Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation of the Siemplify Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response Platform, where we will specifically cover how you can respond faster to data loss prevention alerts. I want to let everyone know that today's session will be recorded and emailed out to you all to rewatch at your convenience after the conclusion of the presentation. Furthermore, we will host a Q&A at the end of this presentation, so feel free to use the Zoom panel at the bottom of your screen to ask questions at any time. My name is Chris Mitchell, and I am a marketing manager here at Siemplify, and today I am joined by Mike Gibbons, one of our solution engineers. Before Mike dives into a demonstration of how SOAR can help streamline DLP case management, I want to first set the stage for what you'll be seeing shortly. To start, here's a little bit about the Siemplify platform. We are rooted in security operations, or as we like to say, we were born in the SOC. Our company was founded by security operations experts who worked in a government SOC, then moved on to train dozens and dozens of both military and civilian SOCs from around the world. They founded the company and developed Siemplify based on their experiences and everything that security operations teams need to succeed. As far as our customer base goes, we are trusted by the biggest and best enterprises and MSSPs from around the world. Many Fortune 500 companies and Gartner Magic Quadrant MSSPs use Siemplify as the platform to run their security operations day in and day out. And furthermore, we are the #1 independent security platform solution on the market. Now, here are some of the common security operations challenges that we hear about time and time again that we address with our solution. The first challenge is that there is no central platform to manage security operations from. If you look at other operations in a company like sales or HR, there's typically one platform like Salesforce or Workday where people log in the morning and get all of their work done. But if you've ever been inside a SOC, it's very typical to see analysts consistently swiveling between multiple products. They may even have 4 different screens in front of them with easily 20 open tabs on each screen. This obviously impacts productivity and also makes it difficult to get visibility into what people are actually doing. The second challenge is that all the tools that security operations teams use and keep adding at a growing pace were not designed to work with one another. So there is no connective fabric to orchestrate all the products that you use. The next challenge is manual and inconsistent processes. The processes that security operations teams need to follow to address a specific threat are oftentimes poorly documented or even non-existent. And even if they are documented and exist, they are typically very manual, which means that analysts spend their precious time on repetitive and mundane activities. This is a particularly serious issue because of the global talent shortage. We all know that cybersecurity professionals are very hard to find, which means that we as organizations should strive to focus our time on high-value work and ensure that the cybersecurity talent we do have is as productive and satisfied as possible. Alert overload is obviously a very well-known problem. In security operations, we put in place all these detection tools that generate a growing volume of alerts. We simply have to do better at being able to efficiently address all of these alerts at scale. And finally, the last challenge we see in security operations is the difficulty in rising above the daily firefight to track the key performance indicators, understanding where we are getting better and where we need to improve. The Siemplify security operations platform has truly transformed how security operations teams function. With Siemplify, security operation teams finally get that single workbench that allows them to work and get everything done in a single platform. You can make all the tools that you have invested in work together and create consistent automated response processes that dramatically decrease your response times. With Siemplify, your limited security talent can now spend the time on higher value work as opposed to repetitive and mundane tasks. All of this allows you to effectively respond to alerts at scale and address alert overload. Finally, because of all the security operations activities are now captured in a single platform, you can begin to leverage this theater to track and measure your security operations and identify areas for improvement. Now, what helps set Siemplify apart from many other SOAR solutions out there is that while SOAR is at the heart of what we do, we also offer a much broader solution that really serves as a central workbench for security operations from the entry-level analyst to the SOC manager and beyond. We have a patented threat-centric approach that groups alerts from across your detection tools into single threat-centric cases. This is a powerful paradigm shift that ensures your analysts are spending their time on threats versus chasing alerts, and this ultimately provides a huge efficiency gain. We also don't stop at the daily blocking and tackling of alert handling. If you discover that you have been breached and need to collaborate with other stakeholders to respond to a crisis, the Siemplify platform has an embedded crisis management module. We also have baked into our platform machine learning recommendations that get smarter with every analyst interaction. And finally, the Siemplify platform is powerfully simple. Yes, there is a lot of power and flexibility for engineers, but our simple and intuitive platform allows analysts to be productive and ramp up quickly, enabling them to consistently make rapid and educated decisions. Furthermore, as mentioned, we are an independent and vendor agnostic SOAR platform, which means that we partner with the security ecosystem you already rely on and already have in place. We currently have over 200 integrations and are very close partners to many of the leading cybersecurity solutions and vendors out there. But you don't have to take our word for it. Even Gartner stated that independent SOAR solutions will do a better job compared to SOAR platforms who are no longer vendor neutral. Lastly, we pride ourselves at Siemplify on our commitment to the success of our customers. As a vendor that's 100% committed to SOAR, we've created a proven and repeatable process to onboard and get customers to value in a matter of a few weeks. We achieve this by allocating a dedicated onboarding manager and customer success manager who work closely with you during and after your onboarding process, bringing a very personal touch to every engagement. We also provide unparalleled support with 3 global support centers, an expert support team, a rich help center, certifications, and pretty much everything you would expect from a world-class support organization. And to top it all off, we have a dedicated community of security professionals who share best practices and exchange ideas, playbooks, and use cases. In summary, we are SOC experts trusted by the best, delivering a powerfully simple, threat-centric platform that is vendor agnostic with a rich partner ecosystem, and we are ultimately committed to your success. So today, Mike is going to specifically run through how Siemplify helps streamline DLP investigations, enabling you to remediate threats rapidly, resulting in a more secured network. DLP alert processing is actually a prime candidate for security automation, as quick response is critical, and it often entails a considerable degree of manual user involvement. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to Mike.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Like Chris just said, my name is Mike Gibbons. I'm an SE here at Siemplify, and I'm going to run you guys through the platform demo today, kind of focusing on a use case around a DLP incident, something that's very common. I know a lot of you tuning in on the call here have probably encountered this a few times. So hello and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're calling in from. But before I do this, I kind of want to just recap SOAR and like our approach to it, to kind of see the thinking that drives our product. So I'm going to share my screen out. I believe you guys can see this here.
Yep, looks good.
Can everyone see this here? Okay.
Yep.
So before I do get into this though, the one thing that I kind of want to talk about though is just like a SOAR platform, right? I mean, a SOAR platform, all SOAR platforms have playbooks. That's essentially the bare bones for being considered a SOAR product overall. An average SOAR platform is made of drag and drop playbooks, which allows for automation by running numerous scripts, some Python in the back end, accessing your security stack, your tools, APIs, which overall makes your SOC faster. But it doesn't necessarily kind of make your SOC smarter, or provide, kind of a richer context. Don't get me wrong. The automation is very, very important, but a little more is needed to really hit the mark. An average SOAR product gets an alert, for example, malware detected, DLP, phishing, firewall alerts, etc. But sometimes doesn't really see the relationship between the alerts, and it cannot easily derive the context that's really needed. It's somewhat siloed in essence, based on one alert being assigned to an analyst, etc. So you can have 2 or 3 separate alerts that are actually linked. They have a common relationship that's really crucial to distinguish in order to properly understand the incident and whatever subsequent response is needed. But many times, let's say, these 2 separate alerts, they're connected, but they're given to 2 different analysts, under 2 different cases. Let's say like, phishing is something that's really common. You have a phishing alert sent to one analyst under one case, and then you have a data exfil alert or whatever associated with it, and a second alert sent to a second analyst. They won't really see the full picture, being it's rather siloed at that point, if you will. It takes skill and a lot of attention to detail to pick up on this relationship, and communication amongst the analyst itself. And I'm not saying that analysts can't do it, but it definitely increases the difficulty in doing so and the overall time to remediation, which is obviously the real important thing here. And given my time as my previous life, working as an analyst focusing on cyber threat intelligence, cybercrime, counterterrorism, cyber terrorism, a whole lot of other stuff there. I've spent my fair share of days, weeks, months looking at raw data, or even just events without much context around them. And I'll admit, just like I'm sure many of you on this call, it's very tedious work, and it drags on and on and on when you're forced to manually connect the dots and derive this context and the overall correlations across, numerous different data points. So how is Siemplify different here? And what I kind of mean by this overall is, Siemplify really breaks down those silos, which in the end provides overall greater speed and efficiency in responding to incidents. It's a SOC management platform that allows you to manage your whole SOC operation by connecting all your security products, building automated workflows via our playbooks, all in one place, end-to-end automation, which removes a lot of the analyst workload, essentially like the tier 1 or the tier 1.5, if you want to call it, so they can really focus on things that actually need investigated, and really just kind of increases your overall SOC proficiency. And as Chris said, we are very much threat-centric, context-driven, not specifically alert-driven, even though we do have alerts, yes. But what I kind of mean by this is, we connect to your SIM, we bring in these alerts, and then we then analyze these. From this data, we extract what we call your entities and artifacts. And then we see if there's any cases that are already open, any open alerts already that share these entities. And if so, we will automatically group those alerts together with our grouping mechanism, which we'll talk about. And we'll bring all those alerts, those common relationships underneath the same case assigned to one analyst. And the platform itself is very analyst friendly, and it allows for really easy playbook creation, the drag and drop, which I'm sure some of you guys have seen before. Really easy playbook management, and permissions configurations, et cetera. Like, you don't really have to be a senior developer to make a playbook or runbook, whatever you call it, or to navigate our system or to use it effectively. So before we got on the platform, I kind of wanted just to recap on that, because that's our overall methodology and the thinking that really drives our product. So now we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit. We're going to approach this as an analyst in the platform would. So I need you all to kind of put yourself in the analyst mindset for a bit. And when a case is assigned, there's generally a few things that an analyst always wants to know right away, right? As soon as possible. You receive a case, you want to know what happened, when did it happen, where did this happen, especially if you're a multinational company, you have offices all over, even if you're regional, et cetera. or a smaller company, numerous departments, right? You want to know who was involved, why did it happen, and how did it happen, Although the why and the how might be a little, further down the road when you start to do, a retroactive deep dive into what and why. But overall, those are the 6 things you want to know: the who, what, why, where, when, and how. And looking in the platform, we really kind of get to the point and to that relatively quickly, and it has to do with the context, how we bring all this together, and how it's displayed overall. So here in the platform, we have the cases tab, and you can see the case name, the overall criticality of the case based on the color codes that we assign to it, which you can see here. There's numerous different ones: informative, low, medium, high, critical. And the criticality is derived from the alerts that make up the case. So there can be numerous alerts in a case, which is what we do. So the thresholding for criticality is set at the combination of these alerts, which is somewhat different than how most SIMs assign criticality, which tends to be based more on like the specific alert itself. So here in this case, restricted file access, DLP cloud storage upload, restricted file access, you have, restricted file access alert on its own is obviously a cause for some worry, but think about that restricted access along with having a common entity with the storage upload alert. Now the severity of the case has changed because we have a little more context around it. We understand more of the urgency and the severity of it. Whereas if these are standing alone, it would still be some cause for some worry, but you might kind of miss the bigger picture here, which is what you really need. So here we can see a DLP alert. We can see a few things are now easily digestible and provide context, like the insights, which is here. An insight's a very short, concise snapshot of the important information that is displayed. And this is brought in by the playbook. That's pulled in from the security products that we have in the playbook, which makes it very easy to digest. These are also incredibly flexible, so you can decide what you want displayed as insights, what you don't, that we can control the amount of information the analyst sees. So here we can see the information that was pulled in from Active Directory, which we see a user, Gavin Belson. We can immediately see his role. He's in HR. We can see the location based out of New York. And then we can see the endpoint, Carbon Black Defense. Gavin Benson, we see this is a common entity here. That's why this was brought in. The user, when he last logged in, and then the host name of the machine. Now, right away, I know the last time this guy interacted with his machine, and I can also see his location. And this is important too, especially for DLP, because regionally, geographically, you can have different policies. A company that has offices in New York, Paris or London, and then maybe has one in Morocco or in Angola or China, whatever. It can really kind of drive the policy and the norm. So a really good real world example that I've encountered would be, the use of USB drives. Now, this is kind of a no-no depending on what organization you're in. Some are like, no USBs, we don't want this. Others are a little more lax. And in a particular case, this was a country coming out of Africa, and it was saying, okay, this was actually, we had a file uploaded to a USB in this country. And at first we thought it was a sound for alarm, but then you started to realize, okay, the policy's there just due to the system and the overall infrastructure and some of the lag that they had, that USBs were actually authorized, which is important information to know right away. But here, that's not the case. This is New York. And if this guy were a senior VP, et cetera, you would then be able to see right away, okay, like this guy might have access or permissions to different things. And with the EDR stuff, the same thing kind of goes with that. So you can pull in information from all the different integrations you have, and we have over 200 at the moment, ranging from threat intelligence, EDR, CASB, sandboxes, firewalls, asset management, numerous ticketing systems, et cetera. There's a lot out there. So we have this. And then another thing that we have is a timeline, which is also really important too, because we can see here that both of these, in this case, occurred at the same time. We have the guy restricted file access alert, so somebody accessed something we're supposed to, and then we have a cloud storage upload alert at the same time. We can have our playbook displayed here, so you can see the different actions that were taken. And then also over here, on the right-hand side, you can see what I was talking about earlier, the entities and artifacts associated with it, where here we have an internal IP, 10 dot, we have the user, and then here I can see we have an external IP, 162.125.6.6. I can see there's a document involved, CC referenced, There's a file hash involved, likely with this file. And then we have an external URL, Dropbox, which I'm sure we all know. Now, why these are grouped together and how these are associated with one another has to do with our grouping. And I'll bring this up here based on the Explore page. So we'll give this guy a second to load here. And here we go. So essentially this is the grouping, and this is a live graphical representation of the common entities and artifacts associated with it. These are our entities, and these are our artifacts here. And it's depicted visually, which kind of shows the relationship in a different way, which is also very important. I've spent my fair share of time whiteboarding this stuff out, updating it as it goes. And the reason why I said that this is live is because this updates as the incident progresses and more alerts are brought into the system. If there's this relationship, it's going to bring them into the case and show the relationship. So if we look on the left of the screen, we'll see our two alerts. We'll see that they're timestamped here and here. And you can see the chronological order in which they occurred, which these two are at the same time. And if you want to see the entities and artifacts associated with each specific alert, you can click on it and it'll highlight those. So, the restricted file access one we can see was this internal device. We see that it had this document, this hash, and then we can see here the storage upload. We can see this user, the same device, the same hash shared across two different documents. And then this was pushed to an external IP and the URL Dropbox. So this grouping overall, the big takeaway is it makes it really easy for your analysts, particularly the junior analysts, to see the reaction and the relationship between the alerts and the timeline for them, which is incredibly valuable in coming to make a decision quickly. And we kind of make this easier too by the way they're displayed. Green tends to be this is not necessarily malicious. Red would be this is for sure malicious, whether it was enriched by your, let's say virus total or X-Force or recorded future or numerous different kind of enrichment tools that are out there. It would label as red if it was found to be. The solid is going to be your internal entities and artifacts, and hollow is going to be anything external to your organization. So right now, I have a really good feel for what's going on here, right? Now, if you want a little more information too, one of the things you can do is you can click on, let's say, the actual entity itself, and you can see here the company, you can see the environment, the user. Here we can see the document, we can see the hash itself, or we can see the external IP, the URL, et cetera. Provides a little more context around it as well, and the device. Here we have the actual IP address associated with it, the network it's on, the environment it's running on, et cetera. So with this case right here, though, we saw Netscope. In this case, is what the playbook was based around. Our CASB. It kicked off two alerts. We have a cloud upload alert and a restricted file access. And here we have what appears to be a user accessing a restricted file and uploading this file to Dropbox. But now, just using our CASB alone, this is kind of where we orchestrate the numerous different security tools together. Using our endpoint here in our runbook is really actually beneficial because using the endpoint, we can scan a file hash and find where the file actually exists. Because our CASB isn't really able to see the user's host endpoints. It really can't pivot around endpoints very well. So we need to enable our EDR, in this case it's Carbon Black, to enrich the data in this case. And here in this case, it really searched the endpoints for a file and a hash. It proved that this file right here has a common hash, which the title appears to be a little different, but the context of the document are the same. So overall, this appears to be a user changing the name of the file, possibly an attempt to obfuscate it. But the endpoint was able to search the file by hash across all the endpoints, find where it came from, where it actually exists, and that it's actually the same. Active Directory was used to provide who the user is. Maybe this is an insider, or maybe this was somebody external. Maybe this was also, this entity could have also been associated with, a spear phishing attack. So maybe this account was actually hijacked by an external entity, et cetera. This is kind of how we orchestrate the flow of this to really start to finish, provide this information very quickly to allow you to come and take action. Now, let's say if you wanted to take some action right now, what we could do is we can come over here and we can click manual action. And this will bring up all the integrations and actions that are available to us and that we can actually take. Now you can automate these in the playbook too. But in this case, just to kind of show, if we wanted to, we can go to Active Directory, we can actually disable this guy's account, click on it, execute, and it's done. Or if we want to go to our endpoint, we could do the same thing with that, where we can block a hash or etc. There's a lot of flexibility in what we can do here. But overall, this is kind of the grouping, kind of how it all ties together, the flow, and how you can take action here relatively quickly based on what you see and what's displayed to you. So I want to take you back to the case wall quick. And we already went over the case overview screen, which provides all of this here. But the case wall itself is another feature that we have. And this essentially is a log of all the actions involved in the case, everything involved. From the time that alert was actually ingested into Siemplify, all the different steps in the playbook that it took, all the different actions that we took in the playbook, the enrichment that was run, the results from that per se, or actually disabling account, password resetting, blocking stuff, any of the analyst notes, if the case was assigned to an analyst or reassigned, if it was closed. This is all logged in chronological order, start to finish. So you can actually take this and export it into a report if you wanted to, for any kind of management, any kind of higher oversight, or just to have a record. You can do this, and you can filter if you wanted to, based on just the comments, just based on the actual actions that were taken, etc. So it provides a lot of flexibility there as well. And one of the other things that I kind of want to show you here is going to be the playbooks page, because this is a really foundational to a SOAR platform. So just to kind of show you guys how this looks and how they are constructed, generally speaking. So playbooks tend to follow, we'll try DLP malware. So what we'll do is, like, the general, I guess, theory, quote unquote, if you will, for a playbook tends to revolve around three main things. You have a trigger, you have an action, and a flow. Now, a trigger is just what it is. So this is what you're going to come in and define. And this is essentially going to allow you to say, okay, whenever the SIM or whatever our log storage is, or if you want to take it from the tool directly, whenever this is observed and it matches up with what trigger we define, we want this to kick off this playbook to take these actions on it. You can have it run on all alerts coming in, depending. You can have a custom trigger that you can define on your own. You can have it done by product name. You can have it run on the alert type, whether it be malware, DLP, phishing, firewall, you name it across the board. There's so many of them. And then based on that, you take your actions. And this is based off of your overall security suite, what you guys are using, and then the actions that are associated with that. And then a flow. So a flow is going to be kind of like your conditional statements. Based on the results of this, this, and this, is this a threat? If so, yes. Okay, go ahead and escalate it up. If not, no. Okay, it's a false positive. Go ahead and tag it, close it out. We'll bring it into our metrics as such, etc. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of a playbook. Drag and drop actions allows you to build your own logic. We have out-of-the-box playbooks that we provide you, which you can adopt, or you can change some of the logic in them to fit your internal processes and your own internal workflows, because they do vary depending on organization, depending on risk tolerance, depending on access to certain tools, etc. We have hundreds of playbooks. And I have a lot of clients that have hundreds of playbooks overall. And it's a good thing, but it's also, it can become somewhat difficult to manage. And this is kind of where we adopted a few features here to make this a little easier. And the big one is what we call blocks. So a block is essentially helps you manage across your playbooks. Things such as, let's say like enrichment, or let's say if you wanted to, for each playbook that comes in, you want to run a certain set of actions to say, hey, what does this even mean? Is this even a threat, right? So you can create a block for that specifically. And every time you drag this block into a playbook, it's going to run virus total, scan hash, scan URL. It's going to use recorded future, enrich hash, enrich host, and then it's going to make a decision off of it. Once you have that decision, it's going to go ahead and carry on down the rest of the playbook. And this is really helpful because when you do this, instead of having to go through and edit all these steps across all 130 playbooks you might have, you can come in and just edit this one block, and it's going to edit across all of them at the drop of a hat. And when you come in here to make a playbook, here you can see if you want to make a playbook or a block. You can select which environment you want to run under. So if you're an MSSP and you have 40, 50, 200 clients, each client has their own environment, you can do that. Or if you're a large enterprise and you have numerous different departments, different offices overseas, et cetera, around the country, you can define their own environment for it too. And you can actually make these run on certain environments. You can restrict them that way, or you can have run across all environments. And when you do this, we'll just go ahead and select all. We'll give this a quick second here. It's essentially the same thing as a playbook. So you'll take your trigger. I'm sorry. You'll take this and then you'll start dragging and dropping your actions in. And then once that's completed, you'll go ahead and save it, and then you can then go ahead and use that in an actual playbook. One of the other features that I really want to kind of highlight too is what we call our war room. So this was actually just renamed to Command Center. But essentially what this is our incident response hub, if you will. This allows you to respond to an incident and kind of to bring all parties together in one place to coordinate your overall response. Given my previous life, working in threat intel and cybercrime, this was hugely important to do this stuff because you have numerous different vendors that you might reach out to. You want some reports on this and that. You're going to have your IT department coming in. You're going to have legal coming in. Depending on what it is, you might have HR. You might have your PR team drafting responses. We've all seen major breaches before. Whether it be across numerous verticals, and it's really hard to kind of coordinate this flow of information coming in from numerous different sources, different email chains, Slack channels, Teams. You have different Zoom calls, Skype calls, Citrix calls. There's so many different things going on. This allows you to come in, define the incident, give it an overall priority score. What's the impact? What are the risks? What's our main strategy here? Okay, start tasking each department, everyone involved. We need you to do this. We need you to do this. Legal, you're going to do this. The motivation tends to be this. What do we know? What don't we know? You can invite participants in. You can give them edit access or just view access, et cetera. And this really allows you to manage the overall response for an incident. And this is incredibly useful for enterprise, like I said, and also MSSPs who are alerting a lot of this up to their clients, and at the same time are helping manage the overall response to it. But it's really a really strong consolidated area to do this. And that's pretty much all I had to cover on the demo. We went over the cases. We used DLP as a good use case for this, kind of how we bring information in. We're able to visualize it, provide good, rich context right away, and then go ahead and take action on it. Chris, that's pretty much all I had, though. I'll kick it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And just a reminder, we'll jump into the Q&A now. So for those of you who are attending, please feel free to use the Q&A panel on the bottom of your screen to ask those questions. But jumping right in, what operating systems does our platform support?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we are a Linux shop right now, and we really prefer to run on CentOS and Red Hat are probably the two most common ones that I see.
And you kind of touched on this already, but someone would like to know if our platform is multi-tenant.
Yes, that's actually also another good question too. So I spoke a little bit about how playbooks can be defined by environments, et cetera. But like the whole platform is incredibly multi-tenant. We support a lot of large MSSPs across the world, large enterprise, like I said. So a lot of the foundational stuff in the platform is very multi-tenant, from the metrics you can pull, playbooks, the overall case management, the permissions that can be set, You can really tailor this stuff for multi-tenancy. It's incredibly flexible in that regard.
And speaking of permissions, someone would like to know how we manage permissions and if they can be customized based on function and roles.
Yes, absolutely. So in the system, you can actually define user roles and you can assign them to permission groups. And this can be based on whatever you want it to be. I mean, the typical build out is, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, SOC manager, but like you can define those as you see fit. You can name them whatever you want, and you can provide permissions however you see fit, whether you want an analyst to be able to see certain severities of cases, if you want them to be able to just attach a playbook but not edit it, if you want them to be able to edit stuff, view certain environments, take actual specific actions, or if you don't want certain analysts being able to take certain actions, whether it be resetting firewall permissions, etc., that's all very configurable in the system.
Cool. And kind of a similar question, are we also able to have different dashboards and permissions for reporting so that way an analyst can see something that's pertinent to them versus something that a SOC manager would be interested in?
Yes, absolutely. So you can have dashboards defined by environment if you want to. This one's run across all environments, but you can actually say which ones you want to show if you wanted to. And then you can really define this based on their metrics for it. And here you can also restrict access to it. If you don't want certain analysts seeing something outside of their environment, that's fine. And you can also allow your clients to even come in and view this as well. You can put your self branding on it if you wanted to do so.
Thanks, Mike.
Did I answer the question? I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay.
So we're actually, I think that's going to wrap up the Q&A portion today. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. I also wanted to let everyone know that if they did like what they saw today and they want to get their hands on Siemplify, we do have a community edition of the platform. So you can go to siemplify.co/community where you can sign up for and download our community edition. As part of that, you also get to join our Siemplify community where we have a portal and a Slack channel, and on both applications, that's where a lot of our product experts, our customers, security experts in the field, that's where everyone does a lot of knowledge sharing, various playbooks, use cases, etc. So again, if you want to get your hands on Siemplify right away, you can go and download our community edition. So with that, once again, thanks everyone for taking the time out of your day to watch this presentation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you guys so much. And please reach out if you guys have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer any of those or engage.
Thanks.